You have to wonder sometimes, why are the ceiling tiles white when you need to have a black one? Well, a little black paint goes a long ways. Hey everyone, welcome back to Papa's Workshop. Today's video is about a little bit of history. In my family, we have quite a few teachers. My wife retired from teaching school many years ago. My son is a teacher, and I have two daughter-in-laws who are teachers. Well, this little history lesson is about my son. Each year, he would take his senior class of students that he had been teaching, and they would sign a ceiling tile. Now, this ceiling tile would have the logo of the school on it. The seniors would sign it, and then he would take that ceiling tile and put it into the ceiling. As a result, you have a living history now of each of the senior class over the years that he had taught. And he's getting to the point where he has quite a few ceiling tiles from the different years that he has taught school. Well, this is no different. The end of the year is fast approaching, and it's time to prepare that ceiling tile for the graduating seniors to be able to sign this tile for 2023. This was the first ceiling tile back in 2017, and over the years, here's a few of them that are displayed in the ceiling of his classroom. The seniors absolutely love this tradition, and oftentimes when they come back from their college years later, they like looking up at the ceiling and seeing their name still there, etched in history. Each year when it comes time to carve out a new sign, I can just go back to the original drawing that I had done. Now, this goes all the way back to 2017. The simplest way to do this is just come down to the work pieces, and you can click on that little drop down arrow and you can duplicate the page. When you do that and you duplicate the workpiece, you get the exact duplicate. Now that way you can make any changes that you want, and you're not going to affect the original. Because I can click on the original and there it is. And I can click back over to this one, same one. Now what I do is just come in and highlight this, change the date, make sure everything is centered, and I'm ready to be able to carve. Now I typically don't save these. So you can see right now I have 2017, and then it jumps all the way to 2023, because there's no real reason to be able to keep these. The 2017 versus the 2023, the only thing I need to do is just center this onto the logo itself. Now I'm using a 1/16 of an inch bit to be able to carve that, because I want to pick up a lot of the detail that's in the center. And yes, I could change that, but time's not a big deal. So I just let it run, and it takes about, an hour, hour and a half to be able to cut this out. But while that is taking place, I can move on to other things. Now, as far as the depth of the cut, because I know some of you will be asking that, but I can come over here, and you can see that I'm cutting roughly about 0.1 of an inch. 0.1 of an inch works just fine, and I'm actually going to set that right at the 0.1 of an inch, and that will take care of this depth with the 1/16 of an inch bit. And I want to make sure everything is highlighted, and we're going to make sure that everything cuts at the 0.1 of an inch, because that's plenty deep. And at this point, I'm ready to be able to set the machine up and start carving. Now the first thing that I do when I turn the machine on is I go through the homing cycle. Now back in 2017, and if you look at some of my earlier videos using the easel and the XCarve, I typically did not home the machine. But these days, I have found some usefulness in homing the machine each and every time. So I'll go through this process and home the machine. And I'm not going to go through all the advantages and disadvantages in this video, but just suffice to say that there are some definite advantages to being able to home the machine. Now I used a combination of the bump stops as well as these hold down clamps, because this is such lightweight material that if you clamp this down real hard, it's going to smash and break this ceiling tile. So these clamps are just lightly tightened where it doesn't smash down the ceiling tile itself, and the bump stops will help hold it in place. So I have these all the way around, and these are just on these two sides. That should hold it nice and secure to be able to do this engraving. I don't go real fast. Quite frankly, I could speed this up and go much faster, but it's really not a speed type of project. Now to start this carving, I'm going to go through the checklist, but I'm going to use an area close to the center to be able to do the Z-probe. That way, if there's any variation in the thickness of the sealant tile, especially because of the way it's clamped down, is going to be more accurate in the center, which is where I'm actually doing the carving. If I did this over here, that's actually raised up a tiny little bit. And those small changes will make a difference in how it actually carves. So the Z-probe will be done over near the center. And then for this project, I am starting from the bottom left-hand corner, which will be my XY home position. Or I should say, the work home position. Now the bit that I'm going to use is this 1/16 of an inch downcut fishtail bit. Now this should give a nice clean cut, and yes, it is a small bit for this project, but this is how I originally designed it, and I'm really not interested in changing the design to have a variation in the different ceiling tiles that are already in the ceiling. So I'm going to stick with the 1/16 of an inch downcut fishtail bit. After completing the Z-probe, then I move the router right over here to this point. This is going to be my XY0 work home position. As I'm going through the checklist, the next step is to actually set that. So I can click this button right there, and now that is set as my XY0 home work position. Another big change is that in the beginning I did not have the dust collection. And this ceiling tile, being quite frankly mostly paper, it created an awful lot of the dust that was scattered all over the machine and all over the ceiling tile. Now that I have the dust collection on here, it makes a world of difference. Literally, you see virtually no sawdust at all that's being generated from this ceiling tile carving. That vacuum is just pulling all of that dust away. This actually was a fantastic upgrade to be able to add the dust collection to the CNC machine, because the dust being eliminated from the project itself, which helps to eliminate a lot of the cleanup, as well as just all the dust that was in the air. Now, this is the first year that I've had this dust collection with the ceiling tile. And you see that very fine little light color around the letter C? Well, that is a very, very fine sawdust that's actually getting into the ceiling tile. So that's something that's a little bit new that I'll have to be able to clean up. And if you look at the ceiling tile itself, in comparison to the hose on the dust collection, you can see how that airflow is actually pulling the dust from the carving directly into the hose for the vacuum. And the residual light color there is very, very fine dust that is actually sticking to the ceiling tile. I really didn't expect that, but this is actually not going to be really a big deal. I want to zoom in real close so that you can see this. This very, very fine dust is actually sticking to the ceiling tile. My first fear was maybe the paint wasn't completely dry enough, but actually if you look at it, all of the sawdust from the ceiling tile is being sucked up into that hose, and you can see how that actually has a direction of flow with that air. The cleanup really was not as bad as what I was anticipating, so that actually turned out to be a good thing. Now, I'm not sure that you can see this. If I zoom in really close on the carving of the 3, I don't know if you can see in the camera the dust being pulled directly into that vacuum. Now, one of the things that I tried is just taking a little brush and brushing off the sawdust off of that area. Well, that helped a little bit, but it really didn't solve the problem. And I don't want that white glow around all of the carvings. So I'm going to have to take the next step to be able to remove all of that. The simple solution, a little bit of Windex on the paper towel. It wiped it right up, and it looked absolutely fantastic in the end. Now, I know this was a real short video today to be able to show you just a little bit of history and some changes that I've made in the shop over the years. to being able to do the ceiling tiles year after year and just making a very simple change. Save that file so that you have it and you can be up and carving in a matter of less than just a minute or two to be able to change the numbers, and you're out in the shop carving. The addition to having the dust collection added into the shop really made a big difference. And like I said, this was the first year that I had used the dust collection with that ceiling tile, because I can remember in the past the ceiling tile threw off so much dust, and it was a very fine dust because it's basically made out of paper. But this was a big game changer. The surprise was that little fine dust that was sticking to the ceiling tile. When I went to brush it off, it didn't brush off. It was still there, and I didn't want that white residue on that ceiling tile. But the simple solution was a little paper towel with the Windex. It wiped right off, and it really wasn't a big deal. So I hope you enjoyed this video today, and if you did, by all means, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down there, and don't forget to hit the bell notification. I do have quite a few videos that I have planned, and I can't wait to get started on those next. So until next time, I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in the shop. So bye-bye. Oh, and by the way, if you're still with me, if you're stuck through the video to this point, I have a surprise for you, a little insider tip. I'm going to be doing some videos using the XCarve and doing the inlays, but it's not just in the inlays. I'm going to be using the epoxy with the different colors to make some really nice inlays, and that is, I think, is going to be turning out really nice. So if you have any suggestions or projects that you'd like to see with the epoxy inlays with the different colors, leave me a comment down below. I think this is going to be a real fun series to be able to do.